Good. Recording. Got this email forwarded to me from my boss at work. It's called Why the Apology. I'm going to read it. Why the Apology? At a time when our president and other politicians tend to apologize for our country's prior actions, here's a refresher on how some of our former patriots handled negative comments about our country. These are good. JFK's. Secretary of State Dean Rusk was in France in the early 60s when de Gaulle decided to pull out of NATO. De Gaulle said he wanted all U.S. military out of France as soon as possible. Rusk responded, "Does that include those who are buried here?" De Gaulle did not respond. You could hear a pin drop. When in England, at a fairly large conference, Colin Powell was asked by Archbishop of Canterbury if our plans for Iraq were just an example of empire building by George Bush. He answered by saying, "Over the years, the United States has sent many of its fine young men and women to great peril to fight for freedom beyond our borders. The only amount of land we ever asked for in return is enough to bury those who did not return." You could hear a pin drop. There was a conference in France where a number of international engineers were taking part, including French and American. During a break, one of the French engineers came back into the room saying, "Have you heard the latest dumb stunt Bush has done?" That's an old letter, I guess. Yeah, pretty old. Doesn't matter. He has sent an aircraft carrier to Indonesia to help the tsunami victims. What does he intend to do? Bomb them? A Boeing engineer stood up and replied quickly, "Our carriers have 300 hospitals on board and can treat several hundred people. They are nuclear powered and can supply emergency electricity to shore facilities. They have 3 cafeterias with the capacity to feed 3,000 people 3 meals a day. They can produce several thousand gallons of fresh water from seawater each day. And they carry half a dozen helicopters for use in transporting victims and injured to and from their flight deck. We have 11 such ships. How many does France have?" You could hear a pin drop. Continued. The U.S. Naval Admiral was attending a naval conference that included admirals from the United States, from the U.S., English, Canadian, Australian, and French navies. At a cocktail reception, he found himself standing with a large group of officers that included personnel from most of those countries. Everyone was chatting away in English as they sipped their drinks. But a French admiral suddenly complained that, whereas Europeans learned many languages, Americans learned only English. He then asked why. Why is that? Why is that we always have to speak English in these conferences rather than speaking French? Without hesitating, the American admiral replied, maybe it's because the Brits, Canadians, Aussies, and Americans arranged it so that you wouldn't have to speak German." You could hear a pin drop. And this story fits right in with the above. Robert Whiting, an elderly gentleman of 83, arrived in Paris by plane. At French customs, he took a few minutes to locate his passport in his carry-on. "You have been to France before, monsieur." The customs, don't correct me if I said that wrong. Monsieur? Doesn't matter either way. The customs officer asked sarcastically. Mr. Whiting admitted that he had been to France previously. "Then you should have known to have your passport ready." The American said, "Last time I was here I didn't have to show it." "Impossible! The Americans always have to show their passports on arrival in France." The American senior gave the Frenchman a long, hard look. Then he quietly explained, "Well, when I came ashore at Omaha Beach on D-Day in 1944 to help liberate this country, I couldn't find a single Frenchman to show a passport to." You could hear a pin drop. And continues, "If you're proud to be an American, pass this on. If not, delete it." Well, I passed it on. I sent it to a bunch of other folks that I know. And that's that. Let's see. What should I call this? Why the apology? Or you could hear a pin drop. 5 minutes. Oh. Yes, you're on TV now. Okay, happy? Yeah. And why am I home on today? This day of work? Because it's my day off. Oh yeah. Well, nothing. Thanks for watching. Good luck.